divine revelation. Only 1 in 12 chosen ones manifest this miraculous mark of heavenly calling. In the quaint English village of Hopewell, a talk like no other echoed from the cobbled streets to the thatch-roofed homes. Whispers of divine revelation danced on the lips of believers, igniting visions of miraculous healings and celestial encounters. Among them was Thomas, a devoted carpenter whose hands shaped not just wood, but the whole essence of faith. For years, Pastor James's sermons enveloped him in hope, guiding his family in fervent prayer at the local chapel. But everything changed one fateful day. When tragedy struck, they received the stark news that ravaged their hearts. Thomas's young son lay in grave condition, fighting a heavy battle against the clutches of death. The village was steeped in sorrow, shadows creeping into the lives of neighbors once bright with joy. In the depths of this despair, Thomas sought solace at a prayer gathering. The chapel was filled with the sound of hearts pouring their hopes upwards. As the sweet scent of incense filled the air, a prophetic word shattered the veil of doubt. It announced him as one of the chosen ones. Hope flickered ever so faintly in Thomas's spirit. But the skepticism of his neighbors stung sharper than the grave news of his boy's ailment. They scoffed at his visions, and their laughter morphed into murmurs of disbelief. Yet, Thomas turned his gaze to the timeless tradition of seeking counsel from St. George, the beloved patron saint of their village. With every whispered prayer to this gallant saint, he felt the pull of divine purpose beckoning him forward. As days turned into restless nights, Thomas's faith found itself sorely tested. Anxiety clawed at his heart, churning like waves in a storm. How could he believe when shadows of doubt loomed large, not only from his neighbors, but whispering insidiously within his mind? With a heart full of desperation, he organized a prayer vigil, an age-old act of faith uniting the village in this bleak hour. The faces of his fellow villagers filled the chapel, eyes glistening with both hope and trepidation, memories of miracles once whispered among them echoing in the stillness. As the night wore on, hope began to wane, the temperatures of faith falling with each hour, like the waning moon. Despair grazed Thomas's heart like a haunting specter. He bowed his head, tears welling up as he pleaded fervently, "Lord, let your will be done." Just then, an ethereal flicker of light cascaded into his son's dark hospital room, bathing it in a golden glow. The very air intensified, as if imbued with sacred presence. Whispers of the miraculous filled the village as word spread. Believers felt a rush, an indescribable sensation of stirring faith, a divine spark igniting within hearts that held only silence moments before. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Unbeknownst to Thomas, a divine transformation was unfolding, one that could challenge the very fabric of their understanding of faith and miracles. The room where his son lay grew quiet, just like the aisle of the chapel, filled with a palpable tension. Villagers anticipated an awakening, a union of faith and light that could heal them all in unimaginable ways. Would the dawn bring with it the miracles they prayed for, wrapping Thomas, his son, and the village itself in healing grace? Now the air was thick with holy anticipation, thick enough for hearts to almost whisper, "What now?" The story was far from over. Hope lay suspended in the stillness, anticipation crackling through the air like electricity. As dawn's gentle light ambered the sky, Thomas's heart pounded. The villagers gathered outside the hospital, their faces a tapestry woven from hope and fear. Each one bore the mark of their own trials, yet they stood united, buoyed by a flicker of shared faith, ignited by the flicker of light that had danced in the previous night's darkness. Inside that stark hospital room, time seemed frozen. A soft, golden glow enveloped the boy, illuminating his features with an almost celestial warmth. Thomas stepped into the hush, sensing a shift within himself. He raised his eyes, brimming with unspent tears, and sought understanding, an answer, a sign from above. Could it be that the prophecy spoken over him was coming to fruition? His breath quickened as he felt an unshakable belief wrestle with lingering doubt. The murmur outside grew, a collective whisper that threaded back through the village. "It's the light. It's a sign," one villager exclaimed, their voice echoing the eagerness of many. They felt the aura of greatness descending upon them, as if divinity had kissed their humble gathering. Yet, each needed to confront the creeping questions of doubt within. What if the light was just a trick of the eye? What if it led nowhere but to disappointment? As Thomas knelt beside his son, the air thickened further, each inhalation pulling him deeper into the presence he began to understand as outstretched arms of grace. "You have to fight, my little one," he whispered, brushing strands of hair off the boy's forehead. "You are not alone." He began to pray, palms pressed together, surrendering his deepest fears and desires to the Almighty. In his heart, a fierce battle ensued, a clash between faith and fear. Across the chapel, his fellow villagers also felt that tension, trying to reconcile their hopes with the specter of loss that still haunted the edges of their spirits. They held hands tightly beneath the flickering candlelight, a tangible connection forged in prayer. Words spilled forth, fervent and raw. "St. George, hear us. Grant us strength." They gathered in their humble plea, buoyed by the pulse of collective faith, a river that washed their fears and doubts away. But suddenly, silence pierced the prayerful rhythm. A shift, an undeniable presence passed through the chapel, wrapping its warmth around them like a blanket. Gasps echoed softly, and then a gentle breeze flowed like the whispers of angels. They felt it, didn't they? Something grand, something divine was about to unfold. Meanwhile, in that hospital room, the golden light shimmered brighter, bathing Thomas's tear-stained face in its warm embrace. It was as if the heavens opened, pouring forth the very essence of love and hope into the boy's fragile body. For a brief moment, the darkness receded, and Thomas's heart quickened with the possibility of a miracle. But even amid this divine awakening, what other layers of purpose lay hidden beneath the surface of this extraordinary event? Just how far-reaching would this miracle be? What ripples would it send through the village of Hopewell? In this crucible of faith, Thomas could only wonder what awaited them in the next chapters of their lives, as this divine orchestration found its resolution. Would the village deepen its faith or succumb to doubt? The answers hung just beyond their comprehension, waiting to be revealed in the unfolding story. The breath of the morning filled the hospital room, carrying with it a promise woven into the golden light that danced across the walls. Thomas held his son's hand tightly, warmth flooding through him, a sweet reminder that love endured beyond despair. Was it true? Could hope grow where loss once threatened to take root? The golden light flickered, dimming for a heartbeat before exploding forth in brilliance once more. It embodied a divine presence, wrapping around the boy like a protective cloak, infusing him with strength. It surged through Thomas's heart, electric, life-giving. His son lay there, still and fragile. Yet beneath that stillness, he sensed the breath of determination awakening. "Father, I believe," Thomas whispered, half in prayer, half in invocations of hope. It was as though his faith summoned the light, urging it to pour deeper into his son, into their lives. Every flicker felt like the heartbeat of heaven itself, echoing in the sacred space they shared. He realized no matter the outcome, they were already enveloped in a miracle. Outside, the village drew in breath as one. The air rippled with anticipation. Old Mrs. Finch, who had witnessed trails of faith and trials of despair, turned to the gathered crowd. "Listen, can you feel that?" she murmured, eyes alight with wonder. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the villagers, a chorus of curious hearts sensing something extraordinary beyond their sight. a feeling of anticipation hung thick, surging like waves against the shore. Within that chapel, hands raised slightly, as if reaching for the unseen, embracing the possibility of a frenzy of hope. "St. George, guide us! Show us your will," came the voices intertwined with pleading prayers. What were they asking for? A miracle, yes, but also for clarity amidst the veils of uncertainty. Suddenly, the boy's breathing slowed, deep and steady. Thomas's heart skipped a beat. Was this part of the miracle? The villagers held their breath, fear and hope wrestling as they stared through the glass doors. They caught glimpses of the boy, a flicker of hope shining even through the distance. It was then the golden light pulsed, a heartbeat radiating outwards. The villagers felt it drawing them closer, pulling them into a cosmic embrace. "It's the choosing, isn't it?" Thomas pondered, vulnerability swelling within him. The prophecy hadn't just spoken of light. It whispered of choice. Why were some chosen? Why not others? Would their faith be woven into the tapestry of this moment, or would they stand witness to its glory as mere observers? The energy in the chapel grew palpable, thickening with expectation. Thomas sensed the divine intent swirling like a storm, the twist of fate caught in prayer, the weight of choices, the power of belief. In that heart-stopping moment of serenity, he closed his eyes and invited grace. All at once, the boy's fingers twitched. Thomas's heart raced. He dared to hope. A murmur spread through the crowd, a notification of the miraculous manifestation. In that moment, peace broke through the uncertainty. As if the veil was being lifted, the whispers of joy began to rise. Heavy tears of gratitude flowed down Thomas's cheeks. They felt the divine presence thickening in that sacred space, something raw, something transformative. Amidst all of this, Thomas understood that moments of clarity often demanded a deeper look. They needed to step back to see the broader painting God was crafting in their lives. What would they learn in the wake of this awakening? With joy intertwined and hearts brimming, the question loomed. Would the villagers find resilience in unity, or would the light reveal deeper doubts lurking beneath? The very essence of truth shimmered just out of reach, awaiting their unlocking in the chapters to unfold. A hush fell over the hospital room, thick with unspoken prayers and flickering hope. Thomas's heart thundered against his ribs as he watched for any sign, any movement. Light streamed in, illuminating the room in radiant splendor, casting gentle shadows that danced across the walls. For a moment, it felt as though the universe held its breath along with him. Then a soft stirring. The boy's eyelids fluttered, a fragile movement yet monumental in its significance. Thomas leaned closer, words caught in his throat. Could this be the first step of awakening? With every heartbeat, he felt a surge of determination intertwining with his son's unbroken essence, binding them in their relentless pursuit of faith. Outside, the villagers mirrored his anxiety, their faces pressed against the glass, breath fogging the surface in a meditation of longing. Old Mrs. Finch, her hands clasped, glanced around at the hopeful crowd. "We must hold tight to what we believe," she said, voice steady yet soft. "Miracles happen when faith meets the heart of grace." Thomas, hearing her words, felt a wave of warmth embrace him. Could their collective faith, this vast ocean of love and hope, hold the power to alter destiny itself? Each believer stood like a pillar, sending unyielding energy through their prayers, their very hopes transforming into a lifeline for his son. As if sensing his father's spirit, the boy's fingers twitched once more. That small, precious movement ignited a spark among the villagers. Whispers erupted, a cascade of joy spiraling upward. "It's happening. The light is responding," they cried out, the fervor building like a crescendo. In that heartbeat of moment, tears streamed down Thomas's face. He felt connected to something beyond himself, a divine thread weaving their lives into a greater story. The boy blinked, and those tiny eyes, usually so full of dreams and laughter, finally sparkled with recognition, meeting Thomas's gaze. "Keep your eyes open, my son. Stay with me," Thomas breathed out, half in wonder, half in command, fighting against despair as creeping shadow. The aching silence of uncertainty lingered, but now the breath of possibility filled the gap, pushing aside doubt. Then a silence swept through the crowd. It was an awe-filled moment, as if they were all holding their dreams tightly, ready to release them into the atmosphere. Old Mrs. Finch, looking heavenward, spoke softly, "We are but vessels of His grace." May this moment remind us that in the depths of discouragement, light finds a way. As the golden rays illuminated them, stretching into every corner of the room, the villagers found solace in unity. They clasped hands, forming a human chain of faith, resonating with a shared heartbeat of hope. Was this God's answer? Could their collective love conjure the miraculous? Time felt suspended as Thomas embraced this moment of awakening. True strength wasn't merely in their personal battles, but in their journey together, weaving a tapestry of faith amid uncertainty. The whispered prayers grew louder, each heart echoing, "We believe." Yet within the swell of joy, a question lingered. What if the light illuminating their path also exposed deeper shadows? Would testing this resolve bring doubt creeping back into their hearts? For every triumph bore a weight, a lesson waiting to be uncovered. With that tension crackling in the air, Thomas kept his eyes on his son, their connection anchoring him. Would this be the turning point they had prayed for, or was there more yet to unfold? How would their story continue to shape the fabric of their faith? In that sacred space, as the light pulsed, a quieter voice whispered the divine mysteries of hope. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Thomas's heart raced even faster, his gaze locked on his son, now fully awakened, a fragile spark of life inhabiting that small body. As the murmurs of hope surrounded them, the light in the room pulsed, harmonizing with their collective prayers. Each whisper seemed to lift higher, a fragrant offering woven from the threads of their unwavering faith. Father, the boy's voice emerged, timid yet laced with an undeniable strength. Those two syllables held a world of yearning and love, dispelling the darkness that had surrounded them for so long. Thomas's heart soared. Faith had birthed this moment, a heavenly chorus echoing in the silence. "I'm right here, my son. You're safe." "We're all here," he replied, his voice trembling with emotion, squeezing the boy's hand. The villagers outside pressed closer, eyes wide with wonder, faces lit with a glow of realization. In that heartbeat, they were no longer mere witnesses, but participants in a sacred act of divine retrieval. Yet, deep in Thomas's spirit, a question loomed: could this miracle transform shadows into light? The gravity of it loomed heavily. He sought to quell the rising tide of his worries, each wave lapping at the shores of his newfound hope. What more must we face? He thought, pondering that fragile intersection of faith and reality. Just then, the boy's gaze widened, capturing the essence of the moment. "What happened to me? I could feel your love, it pulled me back," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The weight of his words resonated in the room, weaving their hearts even tighter. There was a profound truth in the way love had bridged the chasm of despair. Thomas glanced at the villagers whose eyes shimmered with tears of joy. Old Mrs. Finch stood with her hands raised in gratitude, battling her own flood of emotion. "Love is the anchor of hope," she reminded them, voices lifting around her in a symphony of affirmation, "and hope is the light in all darkness." In that sacred unity, Thomas began to see the glimmer of a deeper purpose. This miracle, this awakening, was not merely about his son alone, it signified a spark igniting within each of their hearts. It was a call to a greater awakening for the entire village. But doubt still flickered. Would they be able to sustain this light when faced with future trials? The air thickened with a holy assurance, yet it beckoned deeper understanding. Thomas could sense it. Something beyond the physical realm was stirring. It was as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for them to accept what lay ahead. Together, they stood at the crossroads of faith and possibility. The boy's awakening blossomed a thread of hope in those present, a reflection of God's grace, channeled through their collective love and devotion. As the light danced, mingling with the whispered prayers, the shadows loomed less formidable. "Father, will you teach me how to keep this light?" the boy asked earnestly, looking up at Thomas with eyes filled with both innocence and wisdom. A smile crept onto Thomas's face, warmth flooding his chest. "Yes, my son. Together, we will learn to carry this light, no matter how dark the night may seem." Yet as they stood united, emboldened by faith, a subtle shift began to ripple through the atmosphere. A shadow of uncertainty lingered, hinting at the unseen battles yet to come. What other trials awaited them? What other revelations might unfold amid their journey? In that sacred moment, a question deepened. How far would their faith take them, and what divine truth awaited just beyond the horizon? With hearts entwined in love, they readied themselves, poised for whatever mystery lay ahead. The air hummed with energy, wrapping around them like a divine embrace. Thomas felt each heartbeat a drumroll of anticipation heralding a new chapter. His son, now alive with promise, looked into his eyes with an intensity that made everything else fade away. The villagers, still gathered close, were enveloped in a blend of wonder and reverence. Hope was a palpable force, sweeping through the room like a summer breeze. "We must celebrate," Mrs. Finch exclaimed, dabbing her eyes with the corner of her apron. "This is a day we will remember forever." Her voice rang out, piercing through the veil of awe that had settled upon them all. Yet, beneath the surface of joy, Thomas sensed change stirring. The miracle was not merely a moment. It was a seed planted in their hearts. How do we nurture this light? He pondered, an urgency rising within him. Can one miracle be enough to hold back the night? Just then, the boy turned his gaze to the villagers. "Will you help me keep this light bright?" His voice, though soft, echoed with an authority that drew them closer. Every heart answered with a fervent nod, yet shadows danced in the corners of their minds. Would they still stand together in trials yet to unfold? As if in response, a ripple of energy swept through the gathering. A bell rang faintly from the church steeple outside, stirring the village into motion. The moment felt holy, pregnant with promise, but also burdened with uncertainty. What were they being called to do? What awaited them on this path paved with light and love? A stout man stepped forward, shaking his head in disbelief. "A miracle such as this. It's as if the heavens themselves are shining down upon us," he exclaimed, a glimmer of fear blending with joy in his tone. "But what if it fades? What if we return to the shadows?" Thomas took a deep breath, grounding himself amidst the swell of emotions. "We must fortify our faith," he addressed the villagers, his voice steady. "This miracle has shown us the power of love. Together, we can carry this light into the darkest corners." His words ignited a flicker of conviction among them. Yes, it was true. Though fears loomed, the sheer force of their love could forge paths through the darkest nights. They could shatter the chains of doubt, but only if they remained united. Together, the villagers echoed, voices rising like an anthem, glistening with the promise of community. A vibrant wave of energy pulsed around them, encircling them in a protective embrace. "But hear me now," Thomas said, his voice lowering to a whisper that drew everyone close. "We have to face what's ahead. A light also draws shadows. We must prepare our hearts for the trials." The boy's eyes shone with understanding. "What trials, father?" he asked curiously, the innocence of his youth juxtaposed against the weight of the question that in that sacred pause, the world around them grew still. The wisdom of countless generations seemed to echo in the silence, urging them forward. Thomas felt the pull of divine revelation more than just a simple awakening. It felt like an invitation into deeper understanding. Together, they stood on the brink of something monumental. Would they have the courage to confront their fears? Could they transform the light into a beacon resilient enough to withstand the storms to come? As the golden hues of the setting sun poured through the windows, illuminating their faces, a gentle thunder reverberated in the distance. It was a reminder, echoing promises of storms wrapped in blessings. What thunderous trials awaited their united spirit? How would they navigate the unseen challenges that sought to consume the light they had only just begun to understand? In the confines of hope and fear, their journey into the unknown began, beckoning them to step forward into the mystery of divine calling. What were they destined to discover? The gentle reverberation of thunder softened, like the echo of distant promises mingling with the urgency in the villagers' hearts. Thomas looked around, feeling the weight of their shared anticipation. His son, standing before them, radiated innocence and wisdom beyond his years, casting a gleam of hope on each face. "We must stand resolute," Thomas urged, his voice ringing with a newfound authority. "Our commitment must not be just in words, but in action. We will build a community of faith, a sanctuary for the light that has been ignited within us." The villagers exchanged glances, their expressions transforming from uncertainty to determination. Mrs. Finch stepped forward, wiping a fresh tear from her cheek. "We are with you, Thomas. Together, we can face anything. We will not let this light dim." Her fervent declaration echoed in the hearts of all, stoking the embers of their collective spirit. The boy smiled, his eyes glistening with compassion. "Then let us share our miracle," he said, his voice soft yet powerful. "Let us reach out to those who wander in darkness, who have yet to feel the warmth of this hope." A few villagers, emboldened by the notion, nodded firmly. They had been silent for too long, watching as shadows crept into their lives. Now a spark flickered within them. Each began to share stories of doubt and pain, moments where fear had almost claimed them. As they spoke, a profound silence fell over the gathering. Their confessions became a sacred offering, weaving threads of vulnerability into a tapestry of shared experience. Thomas sensed a shift in the atmosphere, their collective struggle transformed into a sacred strength, binding them together. They began to envision what the miraculous light could ignite beyond their walls. "We must reach the poor, the sick, those who have lost their way," suggested a familiar voice from the back. It was old man Caleb, whose heart had carried the weight of the village for so long. "They need to know they are not alone. This light can guide them back home." "Yes," Thomas exclaimed, anchor in hand, driven by the rhythm of emerging hope. "Let us build connections, not just among ourselves, but with all who seek refuge. Let our gesture be like lanterns in the night, each one guiding another." A resolute feeling poured through the crowd. They began to discuss plans and outreach program, gatherings of compassion, meals shared with those in need. Laughter danced in the air as they brainstormed, and the tension from moments earlier began to dissipate. Together, they could and would transform the village. But even as joy filled the space, uncertainty crept back in. Thomas could feel the weight of the looming shadows, doubts that would challenge their newly pledged unity. "What if we fail?" someone murmured, breaking the exhilaration with a low voice, heavy with fear. "What if our light flickers and isn't enough?" Thomas closed his eyes momentarily, grounding himself before responding. "Sometimes faith means walking in the dark," he said, drawing from pools of inner strength. "Trusting that the light within us can grow brighter with each step. Yes, we will be tested, and that is okay. Every time we stumble, we will learn to rise again together." The boy's hand found Thomas's, and their bond radiated love and vision. There was a lesson to uphold. It is the struggles that sharpen faith and will hold their promise of transformation. With renewed enthusiasm, they held hands, forming a circle, hearts exposed as they called out in prayer. Each voice became a thread, binding them into one tapestry of faith. As the prayers faded into silence, the sun dipped below the horizon. The darkness washed over them, but for those gathered, It was merely a backdrop, a contrast to the light they had begun to kindle. They stood at the cusp of something extraordinary, and yet the weight of the unknown still lingered. What challenges would threaten their unity? What shadows would try to overshadow the light they had vowed to keep alive? The night deepened, and within the heart of the village, a quiet resolve emerged. But the adventure was just beginning. What awaited them as they forged this brave path forward into a world awaiting their light? Stars began to prick the velvet night sky, shimmering like scattered diamonds. A hush fell over the village, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves and the faint whisper of the wind. Thomas sensed that this was more than just another evening. It was a divine moment tinged with purpose. They had prayed as one, hearts joined in a sacred covenant. But now, uncertainty loomed heavier than clouds before a storm. What if the shadows they feared were not just outside, but also within? The boy, sensing the weight of his father's thoughts, squeezed Thomas's hand tighter. "Papa," he whispered, voice filled with both worry and faith. "What if we feel lost on the way to share the light?" "Ah, my son," Thomas replied, kneeling to meet his gaze. "Even in the darkness, light finds a way. We must trust that God is already preparing the hearts we will touch." As they regrouped, villagers began to share their thoughts. Mrs. Finch, the fire in her heart ignited, stepped forward again. "Let us hold a gathering at dawn. We can invite everyone, those who have strayed, those in pain, and even those who scoff at our light. Let us shine bright for them." A buzz of excitement sparked anew. Old man Caleb nodded sagely. "As light is meant to be shared, so must our joy. We should tell tales of hope, stories steeped in faith, reminding all that the darkest moments can birth miracles." They nodded eagerly, crafting their plans under the watchful glow of the moon. Yet still, the flicker of doubt danced at the edges of their hearts. They would venture into the unknown, facing the valley of shadows together. Numbers can feel daunting. One voice broke in, anxiety creeping in. What if only a few show up? What if no one listens? Thomas, feeling the anxious pull of the crowd, responded with calm authority. "It's not the quantity, but the quality of our hearts that matters. One glimmer can guide many. We must trust that the right souls will be drawn to our light." At that moment, a soft glow punctuated the darkness. A lantern flickered nearby, casting a warm welcome to the gathered souls. It reminded them all of their mission to reach out to the lost and the weary. The boy's eyes sparked with wonder. Could it be that we each have our own light? What if I carry the flame for someone who lost theirs? Yes, Thomas beamed with pride. And as we walk in faith, we'll learn that every flicker can become a blaze when we gather together. Your light can guide others back to their own. Their hearts ignited with purpose as they continued to weave stories and plans under the light of the lantern. Each tale exchanged was a seed sown toward the dawn they envisioned, where miracles awaited them just beyond the horizon. Yet, as anticipation built, a shadow passed across the moon's glow. Thomas's heart quickened. Could they truly withstand the test that lay ahead? Would doubt and fear attempt to extinguish their hard-won flame? In the stillness, he felt a stirring, a deep, compelling pull in his spirit. Was it a challenge, a warning, or perhaps a promise? The future was cloaked in mystery, whispering of struggles and potential triumphs yet to unfold as the dawn approached. With possibility lingering in the crisp air, they looked out toward the horizon. Faith and hope intertwined, creating an unbreakable bond. What awaited them at the break of day? Would they find their strength or succumb to the shadows that threatened? All that remained was a single, piercing thought. Could this be the moment they each discover the depths of their calling, igniting a light that would stretch far beyond their village? The first light of dawn kissed the earth, painting the sky in hues of soft gold and pink. As the villagers gathered in the center, Thomas felt an electric thrill running through the air. It was a morning filled with promise, yet the remnants of uncertainty still clung to him like morning mist. Would their voices reach the hearts of those who needed them most? The boy stood tall beside his father, his small hand raised as if to catch the first rays of sunlight. "Do you think our light will reach everyone?" he asked with a mixture of hope and concern. Thomas knelt down again, looking into his son's eager eyes. "It is our duty to let it shine, my son. We must speak from our hearts, for God's light can pierce through even the thickest darkness." Mrs. Finch stepped forward, her face radiant with excitement. "Let us begin with a song, something that lifts our spirits. Music carries the essence of joy, doesn't it?" The people nodded, a wave of agreement washing over them. They knew the power that music held. It transcended barriers, inviting all to join as they prepared. A gentle breeze stirred the surrounding trees, almost as if nature itself was urging them onward. With sweet anticipation, the villagers joined hands, forming a circle. A hush fell over them, hearts beating in a collective rhythm of faith, ready to embrace whatever came next. As the first notes rang out, the melody filled the air, rising like incense to heaven. Voices blended in harmony, each soul contributing its unique tone, crafting a tapestry of worship that resonated with the very fabric of their village. Thomas felt his heart swell. He could almost perceive a divine presence amidst them, a reminder that God was there, listening. But just as hope surged within him, a tremor of doubt swept across the crowd. Old man Caleb's voice broke the spell. "Trouble travels fast when hearts are united. What if those we wish to reach turn their backs? What if our light is extinguished by disbelief?" With courage ignited by their song, Thomas spoke up firmly. "We cannot let fear close our hearts. We share our light, not knowing who it will touch. The call to love, my friends, mustn't falter in the face of resistance. Remember, even a single match can set a forest ablaze." The villagers murmured, the air charged with renewed zeal, yet a shadow flickered in the back of Thomas's mind. What if they're gathering incited opposition instead of openness? The world was heavy with skepticism, and sometimes harsh words lingered longer than melodies. With the sun now fully risen, the atmosphere grew buoyant. More villagers trickled in, drawn by the sound of unity. Thomas marveled at the sight of faces brightening with curiosity and wonder. Each newcomer was aflame, kindling warmth in his spirit. Then, amidst the warmth and anticipation, a figure pushed through the crowd, a stern, resolute man who had long been known for his scorn of faith. Gasps echoed softly. Could he, who had often dismissed their calling, bring an end to their hope before it even began? The villagers fell silent, hearts racing as the man's eyes scanned the gathering, searching for something they could not fathom. Thomas felt a sinking in his chest, yet he was compelled to hold on to faith. "Welcome," Thomas called, voice steady despite the temptation to retreat into fear. "Join us, friend. We are here to share God's love with every heart willing to hear." The man stepped forward, and attention gripped the crowd. What happened next? Would this be a moment of confrontation or revelation? In that critical silence, the air trembled with possibility, the sacred waiting woven into the dawn light. Could it be that even the hardest hearts could still be softened with God's gentle fire? What miracle awaited them just beyond the threshold of doubt? The man stood still, a fortress of skepticism draped across his shoulders. Yet within the depths of his gaze, something stirred. The villagers held their breath as Thomas took a step closer, his heart racing against the rhythm of both fear and hope. "Join us, brother. We seek to share light." Thomas offered, his voice steady, anchored by faith. Each word was a thread, woven into their shared purpose, pulling down the veil of doubt that hung between them. Their astonishment. The man hesitated, then wrapped his arms around his own waist, primal and guarded. "You think your light can brighten hearts like mine? You who pray in shadows?" His words dripped with doubt, yet there was an undeniable crack in his demeanor, a moment of vulnerability, raw and real. "Yes," Thomas replied with conviction, his heart swelling with the truth planted in him. "It can. Love is greater than shadows. Come, hear our song. Share in our journey." With every syllable, He saw the flickers of uncertainty in the man's eyes begin to wane, giving way to curiosity. The warmth of their music wove around them, lacing hope and healing through the cracks of disbelief. Gathering courage, the villagers began to sing louder, voices swelling like a tide pushing against the shoreline. It was full of longing for connection and shared understanding. A truest prayer sent forth into the world, the kind of melody that could bridge the deepest divides. With each note, the atmosphere transformed. The man's rigid posture began to soften, his arms slowly uncrossing as the music pulled at the darkness encasing his heart. He swayed slightly, the embodiment of anguish and yearning suddenly entwined with the sacred warmth of communal light. "Join us," the boy urged, stepping forward, innocence spilling into the space. "We want you to feel it. We want you to know you're loved." Those simple words resonated like a divine echo, pulling the man from the tumult of his own doubts. Thomas observed, hope swelling within him as the atmosphere crackled with palpable anticipation. The man's defenses visibly faltered, brows furrowing as conflicting emotions twined within him. Then, as if drawn by an invisible thread, he stepped forward into the circle. "I want to believe," he admitted quietly, his voice shaking. "Can this light reach me?" A cheer erupted from the villagers, an uproar of collective validation. Thomas's heart raced with gratitude, tears filling his eyes as he held out his arms wide, as if inviting him into the embrace of grace. "Of course. Let's show you," the boy said, his excitement contagious as he tugged at the man's arm, desperate to share this miraculous moment. In that sacred union, the man stepped into their circle. The light seemed to shift, inviting, warm, and healing. The shadows he had carried for so long began to flicker and fade. The villagers surrounded him, holding hands tightly, their songs spiraling into an anthem of warmth that reached the very heavens. As the last strains of the hymn echoed, a hushed stillness washed over them, thick with promise and expectation. "What now?" Old Mrs. Finch whispered, her eyes alight with the spark of divine purpose. "Now we reach out," Thomas replied, envisioning the impact of their message spreading outward like ripples on a pond. "We share our story, our light, every ounce of love we have." Each person touched lights a flame in others. And with renewed vigor, they began to discuss plans for the future. Food drives, community gatherings, moments where storytelling could heal deep wounds. "Let's gather everyone, those who've strayed, lost souls who fear the light. Together, we will transform the shadows," Thomas urged. The villagers nodded in unison, a wave of determination surging through them, reinforcing their collective promise. They felt an electric unity pulsing among them, a holy harmony binding their hearts together, weaving their stories into a powerful tapestry of faith. And in that moment, a profound realization anchored deep within Thomas. The miracle coursed through his veins, a gentle whisper that this was not just about one boy rescued from darkness. It was about an entire village rising to light. The clouds of uncertainty that had loomed now crystallized into purpose. Every villager a beacon, gathering those lost into joyful embrace. Hearts entwined in devotion, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. Turning to his son, now filled with radiant joy, Thomas knelt down. "Look at the beauty of this moment. Light has found its way," he said, brushing back a tear. "Together, we are the chosen ones." As dawn broke fully above them, a hopeful warmth enveloped Hopewell, revealing a path lined with possibilities. Thomas felt the spirit of community surge, propelling them toward the future, embracing every trial, every triumph, filled with unwavering faith. United they stood, hearts ablaze with purpose, ready to love fiercely, to share their light, and face whatever trials life would present. There was no stronger bond than that forged in faith, for it would carry them beyond the edges of their known existence into the light of divine calling. In one voice, the villagers vowed, "We will not waver. Together, we shine." The echoes of their promises rang out into the horizon, a sacred chorus blending past, present and future as they stepped forward into the unknown, emboldened by hope, clarity, and the resounding truth. Love is the light that guides them all. Now, dear friends, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive faith stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread this message. Comment below with your reactions and testimonies about this ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation. And remember, only true servants of God understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second to share.